we're talking about if you have allergies, to actually think again. And I'll be describing today how actually through your thoughts you can eliminate an allergy. And we'll be doing a demo on how NLP, which is called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, has actually designed a process, and I'll be explaining how it got designed in order to eliminate an allergy. And I wanted to explain it well because really for my own intention is that people leave here understanding that hypnosis and NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is adapted from hypnosis, is not about positive thinking. There's actually a very thought out intention and process to have something like an allergy stop happening. So to start, I wanted to start with how NLP actually started dealing with allergies. So there's a man named Robert Dilts. He's actually the second generation of NLP, so he wasn't the originator of NLP, but he's very much a teacher of it, teaches and trains about it. He actually, it began as a necessity. His mother had breast cancer, and they would cut out the cancer and it would come back. They would cut it out and it would come back, so it was recurrent. So she got to the point that said, what's the point if they keep cutting it out? It must be they're not dealing with what is creating it because it keeps coming back. Whatever's creating is still there. And so Robert Dilts, the son, decided, okay, I'm going to try to use every tool I have to see what we can do with your breast cancer. So they spent 4 days. He went to her house. They spent 4 days nonstop. They only stopped to eat and to sleep, using every technique of NLP. And NLP had been used mainly for business, for confidence, for getting on stage, especially kind of a coaching thing. But he used every single technique he had with his mother to discover the underlying cause. And after 4 days, they really got to the bottom of what was going on in her life. Not in her body, but in her life. And really resolved a lot of conflicts, ways she was, imbalances in her life. What happened afterwards was, from having recurrent cancers that the doctor said there's nothing else we can do, she lived another 12 years. So after he saw that, after he did that, he realized NLP has a future in health that we've not tapped into yet. So he held a conference to talk about what he'd done with his mother. And someone in the conference said, well, what about allergies? Could NLP do something with allergies? And he thought, well, that's a great question. And in that same conference, there was a doctor there who's actually a famous immunologist. He'd gotten an award from the World Health Organization in the 50s. And he said, well, because, Dilts is like, allergies. Well, what is exactly an allergies? And this doctor said, an allergy is actually a phobic reaction of the immune system. The immune system is overreacting to something that it shouldn't even have to overreact. So Dilts said, aha, NLP can deal with phobic reactions. That's one of its specialties, is to deal with the fast phobia, to deal with overreactions. So Dilts began to investigate, okay, what are we doing? So we're going to go a little bit through his process, ad-lib his process here, but so that you know how it is that you can develop something that can eliminate something physical, which most people are like, yeah, well, the mind can help positively, but it can't eliminate something that's physical. An allergy is physical. Well, this is what he did. He said, okay, what are we up against? He said, this is your immune system, okay? Your immune system has two functions. It has a passive function, and it has an active function. The passive function is your white cells in your body, in your bloodstream, are called macrophages. Probably your doctor will correct my pronunciation, because I only see it but never hear it. But they're called macrophages, and what they're doing is they're constantly patrolling, and anything in the body that are dead cells, and our cells are constantly dying and replacing, by the millions per day. So those macrophages are around the body removing those. And as well, it removes non-living cells. Now, there's a difference between dead cells and non-living cells. For example, if you're cooking and you drop white flour on the ground and it just kind of explodes, and you inhale it, you're going to get cells into your system and into your lungs. At the beginning you go, ha, you achoo, and you get part of it out. It's not an allergic reaction, it's just the body saying, hey, out. But part of it, you've absorbed it. And so these macrophages will go around and go into the lungs and actually remove these cells that are not really dead. Flour's not dead, but it's not really a living organism. It's not like a virus, or it doesn't have thought. It's just a cell. It's the flour. So these macrophages just go around and passively pick up this stuff, swallow it, and take it out of the system. Another part of the immune system are active. These are called T cells, or the killer cells. What happens is the macrophages are going around and they detect a virus or they detect bacteria, and they say, oh, we need a little stronger. I can't just swallow this thing because then I'll get infected. So what they do is they post a flag onto these viruses or onto bacteria to say, this requires proper disposal. T cells come around, see the flags, they go to it. And what usually happens, for example, with a virus is not a cell on its own. It's kind of like a parasite. So if you have a healthy cell, what the virus will actually do, to make it more obvious, it will actually attach to a healthy cell and utilize a healthy cell because it needs everything the cell has. It doesn't have its own organism. So it comes here. So what happens is the T cells come, detect the healthy cells that are infected, and they explode them. They explode the healthy cells, and then the macrophages can come pick up the dead now cells, and it's your own cells, pick them up and clear them out as usual. What is happening in an allergy is that a non-living cell has been interpreted as a virus. So your macrophages are marking pollen as a dangerous element, and the T cells are coming in and just bombarding everything that has some of that pollen around it. So it's killing a whole bunch of healthy cells in an attempt to kill some unknown enemy that's actually not there. So that's what's happening. So what do we need to do is we need to find a process to convince the macrophages that it's just another non-living cell. So it just picks it up and clears it out like it does to anything else that we absorb into our system. Okay? Before we continue technically into how we're going to do that, why do we even get allergies? Now, interesting enough, we actually have a lot of influence in how we get allergies, very indirect influence. In this way, there's three reasons, so how? Three main reasons of how we get an allergy. One, we can actually condition the immune system to react or overreact. How do we do that? Conditioning actually started with Pavlov's dogs. Don't know if you guys are familiar with that. What it was there was a scientist who had some dogs, and what he did is every time he gave the dogs food, he would ring a bell. Give the dogs food, ring a bell. Give the dogs food, ring a bell. It got to the point that all he had to do was ring the bell, and the dogs were like, looking for the food. He had conditioned the dogs. The bells don't have food, but just the fact that the dogs heard the bell made them automatically, their whole body, expect food. Later, and this is where all this comes from, called psychoneuroimmunology, Adler, another scientist, said, well, okay, we can condition salivation, but couldn't we condition something else? What else can be conditioned in the body? Is the immune system so independent as the scientists used to think, or can that also be conditioned? So what he did was he took rats and he fed them water, but he wanted to put something in the water, so he actually fed them water with saccharin, so sweet water, and he injected toxins into the water, and he would feed the rats. So anytime the rats were thirsty, they would drink this water, and they were actually drinking toxins. And as they were drinking these toxins day by day, these toxins were actually having a very serious effect on their immune system. It was weakening the immune system. So he got to the point he some of the rats died, so he stopped. He said, okay, I'm going to stop giving them toxins, but he continued to give the rats water with saccharin. Well, the body had been conditioned, had learned that water that tasted sweet was toxic. But all he was giving them was water, fresh water with a little saccharin. The rats continued to die. Their immune system continued to weaken, and they died. Why? Because the immune system had learned, conditioned, that was actually toxic. And they continued to respond to it as if it were toxic when it was just a non-living cell in that water. Okay? So that's one of the ways we can get an allergy. For example, this is not, I was trying to think of examples of conditioning, but I'll just give you my own case. When I was little, I actually had a virus. I thought it was a cold. And my mom gave me, the cough syrup that tasted like cherry. And when she gave it to me, I automatically threw it up. The next time I had a cold, and she says, why don't you have this cherry flavored cough syrup? I almost threw up again. Because the minute I smelled that cherry, I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't care how, because I got conditioned that cherry automatically triggered the upset stomach. Another way that we can become allergic is the nocebo effect. What is the nocebo effect? What is the placebo effect?
You think it's something, but it's not.
Yeah, you think something's going to, this thing is going to be great for you, the placebo, and it actually becomes great for you. The same can happen the opposite. You think something is going to be bad for you, and even if it isn't bad, it becomes bad, kind of like the rats. So how do we get an allergy through nocebo? For example, when the general surgeon said that secondary smoke is bad for you and can kill you, all of a sudden, a lot of people became allergic to secondary smoke because they believed it could kill them, which it might if they're in a room this small and we're all smoking, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that was a nocebo. He actually triggered that happening. Another example, very much here in California. I've been here for 5 years. Since I've been here, the amount of time that people have told me about poison oak and how bad it is, the minute we're walking, poison oak, get away from it, that thing is, oh my God, and they start telling you stories, that can trigger an allergic reaction. Because that person, when they're like, what is their body experiencing? Is their body calm and safe and feeling that everything is under control? No, their body's like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And you can actually create an allergy through a nocebo. I actually had a client who was allergic to cats, and it turned out the reason she was allergic to cats is because her grandmother, when she was really small, said, don't sit where a cat sits. It has negative energy. So interesting enough, in her 50s, she can't sit anywhere a cat has sat, or she'll have a reaction. The immune system is trying to keep her safe. Don't sit where a cat sits. She did not have it here in her radar. It was actually quite unconscious, but that's a nocebo. When you watch a documentary about how bad gluten is, how many more people become gluten intolerant? That the minute you eat something while actually having an argument with your husband, and it's the argument that upsets you, but you just see that documentary, you're like, oh, I have that gluten intolerance too. Started out, you can't see gluten anymore because your body's thinking it must be the gluten too. It doesn't know that it's actually your husband had a bad day. Another reason for this, and this is more indirect, it's called life transitions. Interesting enough, we get more allergies and we lose more allergies during life transitions than at any other time. We lose asthma between childhood and adulthood, that transition. We gain allergies between living in our parents' house and emancipating. We gain allergies after a divorce. We gain allergies after a wedding. Why is this happening? If you think about it, in life transitions, we're kind of changing who we are. From being a child to being an adult, from being single to being married to being single. These are big changes in who we are as a person, our identity. Who is the immune system guarding? Who you are. If you are in the middle of a transition and you don't know who you are, if you listen to friends who just went through a divorce, like, I don't know who I am without that, without this relationship. They're in a big life transition. They don't know who they are. And in those moments, your immune system is trying to figure it out as well. And so it is in high alert state going, who is this? Who is Dave now? Who is, now? And so what happens is during those moments, anything that might bop you, immune system's like, that's what it must be. That must be the problem. That must be what's creating so much stress in our system. Give you an example. I had a client, again, I'm expert in cat allergies. It seems to be the thing. I had a client with cat allergies, and as we went through the process, found out that I said, well, when did you start having cat allergies? And he says, I remember the day. Because 6 months after my divorce, my child brings home a stray cat. And I said, well, that's interesting. Go, were you allergic to cats before? He goes, oh no. When I was married, we had 2 cats and a dog. He goes, but during the divorce, and it was a very painful divorce, he said she got to keep the cats and the dog. I was left with nothing. And so when his daughter brought a cat home, the body saw the cat and immediately remembered the pain of the divorce. And immediately, 5 minutes later, they had to take the cat outside. From then on, he spent 35 years with a major allergy to cats and most animals, to the point that he had to have an inhaler. And it was during a moment of high stress, something happens. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with. Now, how are we going to eliminate the allergy? Well, these are the things we have to take into account. What Robert Dilts did was he didn't try to reinvent the wheel. He said, well, what do I have that can be worked here? Well, most of the time when people have an allergy, one way that doctors work with it is by desensitizing, right? They figure out what you're allergic to and then give you those continuous tiny little shots of whatever you're allergic to for years so that your body gets used to it. So the process we're going to do is actually takes into account and we'll be utilizing desensitizations by using your mind. Second thing, we're not reinventing the wheel. Medicine has discovered a way to get the immune system, to train the immune system to not overreact to something, and what's called vaccination. So this actually started, I think it's the 1880s or something. A scientist discovered, I think he was a doctor, he discovered that the milk maidens that had gotten cowpox, even if they were in contact with smallpox, did not have a reaction. Their body was able to deal with it. So they said, okay, so if we find something very similar, we can actually use it to vaccinate that thing that they react to. So we're going to be using that, finding something that's extremely similar but you don't react to. Another bit, very important, that we have to make sure we take into consideration, which we said before. If we expect it to be dangerous, like poison ivy, it will be dangerous. They actually did a test, a woman who was very, very allergic to roses. She came into an office and there was plastic roses there. And the minute she saw them, her whole body went into reacting. And it wasn't even a rose. But the expectancy will actually get the body already beginning the process of looking for those killer cells, looking for the virus. And the last very key piece that we have to take into account in our design is, it's called secondary gain. What does this mean? If your allergy actually keeps you safe, if your allergy actually keeps you from doing something you don't want to do, it's not going to go away. Nor will pain, nor will MS, nor will cancers. If there is a gain, if the body, the mind, the soul gain something from the disease or from the allergy, you first need to deal with and substitute the gain before you can ever clear up anything in the system. Example of secondary gain, there's actually a case, I think Robert Dills, in which they had a client who was allergic to lawn, to grass, and he said, any reason why it would be convenient to be allergic to grass?
You don't have to mow it. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking.
Exactly.
Because that was me when I was young.
Exactly. You won't have to mow. Any convenience of being allergic to secondary smoke? What would be convenient if you're allergic to secondary smoke? What would that allow?
Spouse not smoking.
You don't have to say, I'm not comfortable with smoking. Can you smoke outside? All you have to say is, I'm sorry, I can't. It's not me, it's the problem. And guilt-free. You get to tell them, outside. I don't want to smell it, I don't want to see it. Yeah. Any convenience to being allergic to cats?
Get a dog.
You prefer dogs. You don't like your wife. She wants dogs, or she wants cats. And you actually need to get a divorce, but you becomes the last straw. And you're allergic to cats. And I love cats. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Secondary gain. Whatever we do, we need to make sure we treat that first. Because if that's in place, it doesn't matter what a brilliant hypnotherapist, doctor, scientist, physician, surgeon, it will come back. And that includes pain, autoimmune disorders, allergies, rashes. It will come back. Zits. It'll come back. All right. So, who would like to have an interesting experience? So, what are you allergic to?
Cedar, I guess. I think other pollen now too. Cats and dust mites.
Okay.
Yeah, dust mites are probably the worst.
Okay. All right. So dust mites are the worst. All right. So would you like us to work specifically on dust mites? Would that be an advantage?
I don't know if there's been any advantage to my allergies.
Secondary gain.
Well, I love to garden, so there's no reason why I wouldn't want to be outside.
Yeah.
And I hate having to wash the sheets all the time and worry about that. And so I don't see any advantage to having a dust mite allergy.
Okay.
I wonder whether maybe the pollen allergy might even be worse now than the dust mite one. These things do change over time.
As we transition,
Yeah.
and as we expect more.
The dust mite one, actually, it was funny when you talked about transitions because it was when I moved to Sanford. So I've never had allergies before that, and it was when we first moved here that all of a sudden it was like I had the flu every day, and it was the allergies.
Yeah. So a lot is going on, especially during a move is another great transition moment in which you don't know what's going on, you don't know where you're sleeping, everything is new, and so your body's an alert, and so something surprises you, or you're cleaning that house or whatever, and it just
It's a very
overwhelms the
old
system.
carpet in a rental.
You see how she says it?
Yeah.
Very
Old carpet.
perfect momentum. That's how we get triggered. Okay. All right. So, what I want you to do before we even start is think about how you've been with dust mites. Imagine yourself right now, just momentarily, kind of looking forward and then closing your eyes. How are you now? What happens when you're in contact with dust mites? Kind of imagine as if you're there, you're in your house, or you're cleaning up.
I start sneezing. I could start to feel really tired.
Okay, so you're sneezing, you're feeling very
My eyes start
tired.
to bother me, and my forehead. And
So that we can see what changes have been made, I want to invite you to imagine that you're there, maybe cleaning something up, maybe cleaning under the bed, and you see all that dust. So imagine being there. Now, how is it? You notice your eyes and maybe your nose, some itchiness. On a scale of 1 to 10, as you think about where are you imagining you're at?
I could be at a 9.
Could be at a 9. And what are you imagining you're doing right there as you're imagining being?
I'm looking at a whole bunch of dust under the bed.
Okay, so you're looking at dust
Yeah,
inside.
I'm trying to get it out of there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you're at a 9. It's like, ugh. All right. So I want you to just shake that out, just so that we don't have that memory there. Bend over. Whatever. Move it.
I don't want the dust.
Perfect. We'll move it out. Great. All right. So now what I want you to do is we need to find something super, super similar that's similar to you. So for me, something that'll be similar to sand. But for her, you need to find something. Look at her eyes. I want you guys to see her eyes. They're red right now. After talking about the dust mites. The body is already like, because the body can't tell the difference between imagination and reality, which is why using the mind for this is effective. Because the body can't tell. The body doesn't, you know, you close your eyes, you're seeing the dust mite. The body's like, dust mites. You know, it's experiencing it as if it were happening. That's what you do when you think about and worry. What happens to your body? Sweats, you know, just thinking about getting on stage, your body's experiencing it. Her body's experiencing it. Okay. Now, think of something for you that's very, very similar to dust mites that you have no reaction to. Your body is perfectly and passively, appropriately just getting rid of it.
Could be sand or sawdust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sand or sawdust. So for you, does that feel like, yeah, that's very, very, very similar to dust
I
mite?
think the sand.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can imagine there's probably microorganisms also in sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how are you with sand? Do you have any reaction to sand? Can you get yourself in sand and play with sand? And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a very good experience because she's smiling about it. It's a good one. Good. So, okay, so this is what we're going to do. In the same way that I invited you to imagine that you're with the dust mites under the bed, I want you to imagine that you're there with sand. Where do you want to be? Like on a beach or playing sandbox? Where would you like to fully imagine?
On the beach.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to vaccinate her first. We want to first make sure that things, okay. So close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself, you're on the beach playing with the sand, you're looking at it close to you, and your body's reacting perfectly to that sand. See all the little grains? And feel your body. How is your body with that sand? How's your breathing? Yeah. The sand is calming. Yeah. How's your eyes?
Fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Right, coming back into the room. All right. Yeah, that was calming and fine, wasn't it? Sweet. All right, so I'm just going to do something. As I do this, you get a little bit of that experience again. Just slightly. So we're going to do that again. What we want to do is really get into her system that experience of the sand. And I want to hold it in place because that's our vaccine. So I want you to, again, close your eyes and go back to the beach. What we're going to do is we want to teach it how to react. And to do that, we're going to do it in a way that's desensitizing, in a way that she doesn't go back into that, gold carpet kind of thing. So how we're going to do that is, I want you to imagine that in front of us is one of those big fat plexiglasses, like in the aquarium, between us and like the whales and stuff. And there's whales in an aquarium, but so imagine we have a plexiglass here, okay? Completely sealing us so that anything that's on the other side of the plexiglass is just, we can see it, but we can't really feel it, breathe it, experience it, or we can't really listen to it, okay? So can you imagine that plexiglass there? Okay. And we are here in my office, nice in here. Good? Okay. So now, imagine on the other side of plexiglass, way over there, maybe at the end of the swimming pool kind of thing. Imagine way at the other side of plexiglass is a screen. You can imagine like my photo there is like a screen, okay? And in that screen is another Francine. And she's also experiencing the ocean. What is she doing there?
Sitting in the sand and running it through her fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
And
She's
watching
just,
the waves come in.
yeah, she's just sitting in the sand, running the sand through her fingers. Good. And her body's reacting appropriately to that, huh? Even if she gets any of that sand in her, it just runs it right appropriately. She's still breathing great. She's completely relaxed. Good. And so now what I want you to do is move that image to one side, and in the same exact place, we're going to have the Francine over there. You're here with me, feeling your feet here in my office on the ground. But over there is another Francine, and in the same way she was there in the sand, she's sitting on the floor. You're here with me, and her body's responding appropriately to dust mites. She's maybe passing that dust through her fingers. She's maybe sitting by the bed in the same way as the sand. And she's just running it through her fingers, feeling the texture. And her body's responding this way to that. Do you notice her responding appropriately there to the dust mites in the same way as with the sand? She's totally okay?
It's an interesting idea.
It is. But she's doing it for you. You're over here. We're desensitized. We're way past that plexiglass. But she's over there, and she's just running that dust through her fingers. And as she's doing that, she has this reaction, this appropriate reaction of her immune system. And she's breathing normally, and her eyes are normally. See that over there. And now, what we're going to do is, she's learned it for you. So what I want you to do is move the plexiglass, grab her, she's learned that for you. Grab her and just bring her into your system, right? Grab her and bring her in. Chunk. Get it into your system. Breathe her in so that her immune system becomes your immune system, her macrophages becomes your macrophages. Got that? And how are you now? And now I want you to imagine that you're passing dust mites through your fingers. Imagine that. And how are you with that now? Interesting texture, huh?
Yeah.
How are your eyes? Just notice everything.
I feel fine.
You're
I
fine.
don't feel itchy or anything.
Good. Good. And so this is different. If you're looking at her and looking at her eyes and looking at everything, it was quite a concept when I said it, but then she relaxed into it. She actually took a deep breath, like, oh, okay, I can actually do that.
Because it's a different way of thinking that.
I know. Have allergies, think again. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. We can do it with something. Yeah. All of a sudden, all these thoughts kind of shifted differently. And as you change your thoughts, your microphage is like, oh. Okay. So think of the next time you're going to go and look under your bed. What might that be? Back.
I didn't get tomorrow.
Might even be tomorrow. So imagine tomorrow. You're needing to look under the bed and vacuuming. And you have this response. How does that matter?
It's just sand.
It's just sand. Yeah, most of Santa Cruz dust is actually sand. Yeah, it gets into everything, especially our cars.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, let me know after tomorrow.
Yes, I will.
Alright. And usually in the session we will do this. Sometimes I will actually do it several times just to really make sure I'm really conditioning the new response. Sometimes with just this, it is effective. Because thank you.
You didn't, unless I missed it, you didn't
Yes.
do the secondary game part, or did you?
Yeah, that's why we asked, is there any advantage of having
Oh, just in
The
the
dust.
beginning you asked.
Yeah.
So no, and the expectancy was the one where her eyes were.
Yeah, well, she was expecting it to happen, exactly. And then when we did the test and we put it over there,
Yeah.
you actually, if you saw her face, she's like,
So it's kind of like.
Oh.
okay.
I am actually going to be able to expect something. We collapse the previous expectation. Oh, I'm going to treat it like
So
sand?
you kind of wrote it down in the opposite way of.
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah, as long as we have these elements in it, and we just need to make sure that we create these same kind of things. Some sort of vaccine, using something similar, desensitizing her, separating her from the experience, and not bringing it in until it's good again. Creating a new expectancy rather than the old one which we tested at the very beginning, and at the very end, when we test it again, it's fine.
So when you've done this with people, like how many sessions do they do, and how successful is your rate of?
I've had, for example, with the cat allergy, with the 35-year cat allergy because of the divorce,
Yeah.
immediately after the session, we went outside, and I don't know why Universe does this, but there was a Persian cat outside. I mean, hairs this long, just looking at us. And so I said, and then he was like, okay, we had the inhaler, I had 911 ready. We should never do that. He was my first person. I will never do that again. I would be a little more. He was a friend, so he was like, I'm going for it. You know, if I would have known how allergic he was, I would have actually said, go test it first, you know. But he actually played with the cat immediately after the session. No problems. No problems. The cat actually let us pet him like half an hour. It was ridiculous. Persians don't like that much attention.
That's
They just-
funny.
yeah. So it can be quite immediate. If it's not immediate, so I've done this with allergies and I've done this with Raynaud's. Raynaud's is, some people have a overreaction, a phobic reaction to cold weather. It usually comes from a previous incident, a traumatic incident. And so what happens is the body's conditioned, cold weather means danger. And so anytime they're in cold weather, their blood cuts off from their fingers and they have white fingers like a corpse. They can't feel anything either. I've used this with Raynaud's, the same kind of thing, because it's an overreaction. In that case, there was some secondary gains. There were some issues around safety. It was actually keeping her from doing things that weren't safe. So we had to do more sessions. Sometimes one session is necessary. Sometimes the similar element isn't similar enough. So we have to do it again with something else. So it's that counter example, that other element is just not convincing enough for the body. or the secondary gain. Those are the only two things. I usually offer this like in 3 sessions. I say by 3 sessions, you should be done with it. Study-wise, there's been studies, and they say that they're 80% effective, and usually for 1 session. Usually they can gain up to 95% effectively once several more sessions are done to deal with any underlying cause and effect.
And it sticks.
And it sticks.
And then your own personal experience has been.
So I've worked with
Twice.
that yellow dust. I've worked with cats. Yeah, my own experience. One person came only one time. As we did it, I noticed he was like, this ain't gonna work. You know, this kind of thing. And the similarities wasn't quite, he didn't come back. So I'm assuming it didn't work. And the whole thing, it was just, he wasn't participating. But other than him, I've even worked with poison oak, in which the woman then said, I think I went through poison oak because my hand became red, my arm became red, but then after my shower, the redness was gone. And I said, test it, and she goes, no, Emma, I can tell you I've been red, I can tell you I'm pretty sure that was poison oak, I am not testing it for you. But yeah, I worked with poison oak, you can do this with food, because food is the same thing. It's just a non-living cell. There's no reason why the body has to overreact to it. Body doesn't like it, body gets rid of it. Body doesn't have to explode everything around it. There was actually a study with 120 participants, and the highest rate of success was with food allergies. Now, this is great for allergies, but what I really wanted to also talk to you about is, after seeing how effective this was, is when I began to say, well, holy smokes, you know, especially with the guy with Persian cats, I thought, you can do this, you know, in 30 minutes, I think we were doing this, 30, 40 minutes. What can you do with other autoimmune disorders, for example? And that's when I began to investigate multiple sclerosis, because I wanted to know, well, how much can I get the immune system to stop attacking the nervous system, and with lupus, you know, to stop attacking the organs. And so when I started investigating this, I actually found another person like myself who had started this much earlier than me. It was actually a good book, if anybody who's ever interested. A guy named Earl Corliss, who did the NLP training, actually NLP for health training. So he did one of the first trainings after Robert Diltz's thing with his mom. They did a training on using all these processes for health. So he did a training. He also saw just how successful the allergies, and he goes, wow, I wonder how much further we can go. He goes, cancer, allergies, what else? So he talked to his neighbor who had multiple sclerosis, and he did all these processes. He worked on her expectancy to get sick, because the doctor says you have 10 years before you're in a wheelchair. He worked on all the secondary gains. He worked on, you know, other ways for her to react to life, similar ways. He worked on, you know, having her not experience it. And then, as I learned, and as he learned, multiple sclerosis is multiple reasons why it's there. So it has a lot more depth. And it's through these processes that we have slowly resolved the reason the body decided to attack itself.